Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to do a video today on Arcturians. Abby had done one recently, and she asked me to do one, so I did a journey. It was quite an interesting start. Not that they're super difficult to get to, but they do is they put you through a test. And interestingly, that test, a lot of the times, it could be the typical things that we fear with aliens as being kind of experimented on and stuff like that. It's interesting that they do that at the beginning, but once you overcome that fear, you're able to communicate with them and talk to them specifically. That's one of the things I think people in general, when you do this type of work, you sometimes have to go through a series of tests in the sense of you have to be able to overcome your fear in order to do certain things. And fear is one of the things that plagues most of us when it comes to journeying into everyday life. So when these beings test people, some people get lost in that fear and are not able to get past it. And it's interestingly that, I'm not saying anything directly, but it's interesting that a lot of the times it is like an experimental type of situation where you're on a table and they're doing things to you and stuff like that, or some type of fear-based thing that you have inside yourself. There's a lot of stuff that happens that is unexplained and is difficult to explain, and sometimes explanations for these things could be simpler than we imagine. And that's the key here, is that we need to be able to decipher for what is real and what is not. And that's one of the most difficult things as a human race we have to go through every day. There's a lot of interesting things happening in the world right now. And there's a lot of people that are really what you call, they're not open to spirituality, they're not open to love, they're not open to a lot of things, and everybody is closing themselves off and is segregating themselves. It's a very dangerous thing when we actually create a world where everybody's out for themselves and everybody can't or does not want to communicate in a group setting anymore. They kind of want to be in their own little world. They're able to communicate to the world, but not directly one-on-one speaking. It's like, it's becoming a really big problem. I actually did just on a side note, I did a quick journey into 5G as well, and that was a very disturbingly obvious thing. The faster we transfer energy through space and time, the faster we vibrate, because it actually creates a situation where it speeds us up as well. But when we speed up, we're not really designed to speed up without the understanding of why we're speeding up. So we fight against that speed, so we end up becoming very tired from it. And with a 5G network, it's not going to affect the countryside so much, but in cities, when they start activating such a network, it's going to create a blanket over the whole area. And the distance between information is very, 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 it's almost non-existent. So information travels extremely fast. And by doing that, we actually speed up. But at the same time, it actually burns us out and we get tired and we get almost zombie-like. Now, if this is intentional, I don't know. But the frequency itself is what creates a certain effect. So by changing the frequency, we might simply be able to have the same speed, but change the frequency so we open up and become more vibrant instead of becoming more docile and more tired. So I think that frequency is the key to switch a little bit, and it could change the world. But we're not actually into a 5D world yet. At this point in time, the frequencies that they're using are creating tiredness in people. And by changing that frequency, we might be able to move past that into something that's way more beautiful. But again, I think it's very, very important that mankind does experiments, in a sense, does testing how this affects the human being. How does energy affect us? Instead of just putting forward and analyzing the heck out of any medical thing, for instance, a medical thing that will delay it so badly they can't even get on the market for years and years. But when it comes to electronic, it seems like they throw it on the market without even thought. But I think we need to also look at that as well and to see how that affects the human race and modify that so it becomes a more of a positive experience. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic, but it's interesting it comes up during the conversation because we want to go visit Arcturians, which are very intelligent beings. And they want to help the human race, but they will not come here to change the human race. They'll help us change, but it's going to be like an individual basis, and it's going to be something that we will have to ask for. So if we want them to come to help, we need to ask them to come to help. And it's only going to be the individual that asks is going to get that help. And what that help is, well, it's hard to really say. Because they're working on a dimensional space that is very similar to sleep. It's like the journey state, so to speak. It's an area. It's like you could say the fourth dimension, so where they will go and they'll connect onto our spirits and communicate through that. So how do we communicate with them? And if we ask for help, how do we communicate with them if we don't even know how to do that? Which is hence part of the problem. Which also is a reason why when we ask for help, they could come to us in a sense, and we could have a paralyzation dream or a dream of being on a actual table being experimented on by them. Now, when you break through that fear, because it all is fear, you'll start to realize that this is all a test. And if you pass that test, then you're going to be into something much more interesting, and you're going to be able to have direct communication with them. I'm not saying all the events that we see as they're basically saying that that's the explanation for all these things that happen to people. I'm saying some of them are. Because these other people might have had a real experience, but because the whole human race is connected to that experience, we could have a fear based on that specific thing. So they test people to see if they can overcome their fear in order to be able to, I don't know if it's the right word, be worthy of their communication, but it's they need to understand that people are able to overcome their fear so they can get correct communication. And I think that's a better way of putting it. So I'm just going to go directly to the Arcturians here. So I always like to take a deep breath in and exhale slowly. I'm on a ship and I'm going through these lines. I've been on this ship before, and it's a ship that I've been on with my higher self. But this is where I'm going. I'm going through space and time right now. And it's interesting that one of the things I had to do is be able to leave things behind in order to talk to them, because they're on a different plane. And in order to get to certain planes, you have to be able to leave certain things behind. I'm getting easier and easier for me to be able to just leave things behind. So I just put a suitcase, and I put it on the ship. And the ship goes really fast. Like it's just kind of like warp speed. It goes really, we're going like warp speed, but now we go really fast, and the whole ship's elongates. And we shoot forward very fast. This is interesting because I stopped just before like a huge black hole. But it's not, maybe it's not a black hole. It kind of looks like one, but it's a big, huge vortex, because it can't be a black hole because the planets around it are stationary, and it's like I'm in a solar system with a huge, huge, massive hole, and it's pulling energy into it, but it's just forming. So it just appeared in this, and now it's starting to pull all the planets into it. including myself. I can see the planets as they're literally being pulled, and they become very, very stretched. But I don't think it's a black hole. It doesn't have the energy of a black hole, but it is a dimensional space that is pulling things into it. And it is a black. But it's not what you would call a black hole. I get pulled into it as well. Our ship gets pulled into it with the planets in around us, and we're in a different space. And when it gets pulled out, all these planets are in rubble, except our ship seems to stay intact. But all the planets that were pulled into this space are in rubble. They're in ruins. When I look back the other direction, the planets are still intact. This is important, that when you go into this space, it's directly connected to our space, but one side is fragmented and one side is perfectly intact. And this is important. They really want me to point this out, because they are standing right beside me, because I've already connected with them, and when you connect with them, it's very easy to reconnect. They want to really, really, really show this, though, to emphasize that we have a side of us that is broken and a side of us that is not. And it's like, now I'm seeing the space like this. I'm in the center, and I have one eye open that is perfectly intact. The other side is fragmented. They're asking you, how do you change this scene? Because this is the human race. One side of us is great, the other side is broken. But I know this is a typical scenario, but this is what they're showing me, that one side is broken. They keep saying that over and over and over again. How do you fix the side that is broken? They're doing something very interesting. They're kind of waving their hands in weird ways. And they're starting to do something with their fingers, and they're creating like lines of energy that are shooting out, and it's repairing this side. So as I see this side starting to repair itself, it starts to get really messed up, and it starts to be very violent, very loud, and very chaotic. And they start attacking this thing with everything they have, but this stuff just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And now there is no line. The line now is over here, and this is seamless and beautiful, and this is getting harder and harder to see. But it's becoming really, really super loud, though. Very, very, very loud, very violent, very stormy. Now, I could take my energy and spin it so I'm facing the chaos, or I can continue to look. I can even turn this way to look more into the light. And this is interesting, because if I am in the center and I'm looking half, I can simply do this, or I can simply do this. But this star is still expanding and changing and growing. And they're showing me the work that I do for myself is creating this. This side is getting louder and louder and louder and louder. But the energy of love is growing more and more and more. And this chaos side is becoming smaller and smaller. And they're showing me how far I've actually gotten. But the problem is, the smaller this gets, the louder it becomes. So how do you quiet this down, I ask? By simply turning yourself away from it. And because it seems like even though I'm doing this, I'm still sometimes focused on this instead of being like this, and then I have nothing but love and light in my life. But for some reason, you sometimes are here, even though you have all this beautiful things around you, you're focusing on something that's very small. Now it's like, if you took, like, they say my whole experience is 180 degrees, not 360, because it's just say 180. I got like with this much left on this side that isn't corrected yet. That still has to be worked on. But we have as a human being, we have the bad tendency to either be here and never deal with this, or when we deal with it, we're stuck in this, or we can simply just turn and continue to deal with this, but the loudness of this gets dimmed as you turn away. Because if you turn towards a sound, it becomes louder. If you turn away from it, it's quieter. And it's not just the sound itself, it's the energy that's giving off. Because if you focus on the chaos, it becomes louder and louder and louder. They're still showing me the chaos is getting so small within my own life, but it's extremely loud. But soon that is going to completely close over, and the chaos isn't going to have any voice anymore. And then you're able to move past and grow and experience all this beautiful love and light that you put into your life. And now if you look straight ahead or look left or right, it doesn't matter, because everywhere you look is beautiful. Now if you use this, if you're inside a bubble, and you can move any direction inside this bubble. What are you going to focus on? You could spin around, and then you could look at your life in this bubble as what is going on in your life, future, past, and present. And you could move back and forth and focus on any part of your life, or even past life, or even your spiritual life. What are you going to focus on? We have that choice to focus on any of that stuff. It's our focus that creates a reality. In a sense, it creates, not necessarily will switch our reality, but what it does is it makes whatever that part louder. So what do we want louder in our life, love or light or not? They're saying you still work at this, and you have to work at this side, because eventually that will close over, and you're gonna, in this now becomes completely engulfing. So you're able to grow extremely well. If you just stay here, it's like having your heads in the clouds and pretending that nothing is wrong. But while you're working on this, you also need to work and be in this. You can't do this without this. So you can't be working at chaos without love. But you also, when you're working with love, you also can't be in chaos too much, because it will cause this, it creates a situation where your life can be very, very, very difficult. And what happens sometimes when people work on their chaos side, they never see the light, and they get lost in the dark. And that's what fear does. And this is why they do a test to people to see if they're ready to deal with this, with the chaos side. Because if you can't look into the chaos side and be able to back look here, or work with love and light, and also confidence and respect, it is a combination of many things, and belief is important. If you lose all this side of yourself while working at this, you can really get messed up. Really messed up and lost. So they say, please, if you cannot pass our test, we won't help you until you're able to pass that test. And that test is simply to have fear and set it aside. Because we will test you to make sure that you're ready to face them parts of yourselves that we're here to work with you to overcome. It's a very simplified way of putting things, but it's meant to be simple. It's not meant to be complicated. Because if we make things complicated, then we leave out part of the human race, and that's not what it's about. I've been thinking a lot about many things, and I know I don't have a lot of the time. I don't spend a lot of time talking to people because I'm just so bloody busy in my own life. I look at everything as energy. And I notice I've been finding myself, okay, what does a couch look like? What does a person look like? What does the energy feel like? And if energy is all energy, why aren't the scientists looking at people as energy instead of biological beings? Because if everything is energy, including our biological makeup, disease can be removed by removing the energy or changing the energy, changing the frequency of the energy. We might be able to use frequency to kill cancer cells, for instance. We might be able to use in the future, like Star Trek, for instance, a teleportation device to be able to remove, simply just remove the bad cells or just change those cells into something that's positive. So if you have healthy cells, you'll be able to transfer those cells. But it's like you could literally just teleport a person from A to B and remove all those bad cells and leave them behind. Like, it's possible. Scientifically, this is possible. But we don't look at everybody as energy. And that's one of the other reasons why the 5G stuff I was talking about is so concerning, because we don't look at what energy does to the human race. Thank you very much, everybody. And if you wish to do a journey with me, you can visit my website at amonrastawakening.com. And you can visit my Northern Lights page at josephbradleyauroras.com. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great day.